Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Marketing Corner with Casper and Jen. Today we're talking about the things that keep us sharp. So how do Jen and I ensure that we're best marketing people there is on this planet? Probably aren't, so don't listen to us too much. But it's something that we heard a bunch of people talk about. Is like, what are the stuff we look to, and who do we also who are our heroes? And I think it's a really good topic for an episode because we can always learn from other people, and I do that a lot. And I think Jen does the same. So I'll let you kick it off, Jen. Where are some of your inspirations coming from?
Yeah, so I think it's really important, obviously, to stay sharp, and marketing in particular. I feel like every 2 weeks something changes, or there's this new strategy, or this new algorithm, whatever, that you just have to stay on top of, and there's a lot of things to stay on top of. So first and foremost, yeah, like looking around on LinkedIn, seeing what people are sharing. Like you, I follow Dave Gerhardt, I follow Chris Walker, a few other names out there that I really like to see what they're talking about and see what they're saying. Podcast that I particularly also like to listen to is Perpetual Traffic. I find that one really, really helpful, and actually a lot of the stuff that I have implemented that I've seen a lot of success from have been inspired from them, such as the Upside Me funnel, which we did talk about in a previous episode, and I believe it was episode 9. I got that from Perpetual Traffic. So there's a lot of actionable stuff there. But I think the thing I get the most out of is actually mentoring other people. So I'm currently a mentor with the Marketing Connect Copenhagen. Check them out on LinkedIn. They're really, really great. It's run by my friend Dahlia. That took me up with mentoring 3 different people. And as part of that, you kind of prepare for meetings with them, and they ask you questions, and sometimes you're like, I don't know, I'll get back to you. And it really helps you. I think when you teach other people, it really helps you learn along the way. So those are the kind of main things I think I would do to kind of stay on top of my game and know what's going on out there. And of course, having our own podcast.
Yeah, it helps, right? No, but I think if we speak to the mentoring part, like that I do the same. So I also mentor 2 people, and actually I would consider mentoring. Like I do a lot of let's call it mild mentorship. It's not official, but like people use me as mentors, and I do that a lot. And I take the time out of my busy calendar from away from my kid and wife sometimes to do it, and that's because I sincerely believe I need to, because otherwise I'm not as sharp as I should be. So I also do mentoring. I also have some like mentor relationships, not officially, but some advisory board people where I use them as mentors a little bit. So I also do that like for myself and how to improve, and I try to focus on people who call out the bullshit, right? Like, so the ones who are telling me like it is. You don't want to have people who just pat you on the back. One of the things I actually wanted to bring up. So in a moment we'll talk about podcasts, and I can talk about books and stuff, other stuff. But one of the things I've actually done for almost 5 years now is I have a small consulting bigs or consulting biz on the side. And I don't have a lot of time for it these days, very little. And I always do it in the odd hours, like we're recording this at 10 in the evening, right? So, but my point is, I've always done that where I help small startups for a long time with everything marketing related, and that is one of the best things I've ever done for my own career. And I started out earning basically very little, like almost nothing. And now I earn a little bit more, but it's not. That's really not why I do it. Like, because if your money ever becomes the driving force behind it, then I would stop. So the reason I do it is because it puts me in situations where I have to challenge my brain. So I get in, because sometimes, like, let's say now I'm working in fintech. Before I started here, I had never worked in fintech before. But imagine, like, okay, unfortunately, I never had a help a client in fintech. Actually, did help a fintech client, but it's very small. Anyways, but imagine some of the other businesses. I remember I've helped businesses that work on restaurant automation systems. I've worked on the businesses who work with music sites. I've worked with companies who do a lot of SaaS companies, but a lot of different things. And I've learned so much from them because like not all of them use HubSpot. Like some of them use Spring CRM, and some of them use Soho, and some of them use Salesforce, some of them use Pardot, and it forces me to rethink and learn things from the get-go. And I love that. Like, it's so good. the challenge is different. It's not all of them that has a crazy high lifetime value, whatever it is. So putting myself out there very early on, like I started almost right when I started Templify, doing this learned me so much. And the thing is, you take that home. Like, yes, if you operate in HubSpot and I learned how to do Pardot, that's maybe not going to teach me so much, right? But I remember I had a project where I had to help a company with some Google Ads. And then I just learned that from my time in Templify. So I did that. And then I found a hack I could do with the new company. I was like, maybe I could do that with Templify. And then I went
Hmm.
back and did it with Templify. I was like, yeah, it's amazing. Works here too. And stuff like that, right? And so that's actually one of the things I've learned the most from. And I'm super happy. And it's actually a requirement whenever I work with companies that I can do that on the side. Like it never takes out my work time. Like I always do it after work and ought really in weekends and stuff like that. But just a few hours a month on stuff and passion projects on the side that keeps me really short, really really short.
That's an excellent point, actually. Yeah, I did some consulting as well, and yeah, it's interesting to dip into other industries and to other practices. And I think I had one that was like a health food company, and I had another that's a life coach, and it's like so different to what I'm doing. And so you kind of, yeah, you apply some principles, and then you look at things and you kind of apply it to your day to day job. And yeah, absolutely right. Like consulting with others is also a really great way to stay sharp. Yeah.
I think one of the things in the same note I do, and I know you do too. Like we both of us speak at a lot of different events, right? And I think one thing I've learned is that once you learn how to explain something to, let's say, a 5-year-old or to someone else who doesn't necessarily understand marketing, then you really understand. And typically at events, like it's not some I've spoken at events where like it's all marketing people or all very senior, super specialist marketing, whatever people. I've also spoken at events where it was like SaaS event. And then it's like, okay, it's all kinds of people in the SaaS and the developers. And
Mhm.
sometimes you have to and you have to say, okay, then I did this cool thing. Let me explain the things around it. Because I can't just show you the cool thing, then you won't understand how it works.
Mhm.
So speaking at events sometimes focus like allows my brain at least to say, okay, what cool, like what are the things I actually want to show? What are the important things?
Mhm.
And we just did an episode, a previous check it out about metrics and stuff, but that's actually spoken a lot about metrics, and that's kind of like when I sit down and say, like, what is it I want to talk about this event? Like, if metrics comes up, a lot of the times it means I'm on the right track. I think.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, I think the first time I really dipped my toe into the speaking gig, it was Inbound in Boston, and that's a huge
pretty
one
big
for me.
gig, pretty big gig.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Inbound and I was just blown away. I mean, the cool thing about Inbound is it's so many different tracks. There's so many different things. And I think the great thing about marketing, what I love about it, is it pulls from so many different disciplines. And so I learned so much and I took all these bits and pieces and I came back and plan day was pretty I had to make my case to go, right? Because it's in Boston, so it's flights, it's hotels, it's not a cheap conference. Like it's not like I'm just going down the road. And they said, okay, you can go, but you have to come back and tell us 5 things you're going to do. And so when I went to the conference, I had that in my frame of mind, and I suggest all managers do this to everyone you're going to send on any conference or training course. What are you going to do when you get back? Give us 5 things. And I came back and I did those things, and it worked really freaking well. And so I ended up going to Inbound and telling them, hey, this is what I did, and this is how it worked for me. And the second year I was at Inbound, it was a sold out crowd of over 350 people. And there was a waiting list. And it was just so like, oh my God, like I know stuff.
Yeah, no, that's
It's
right.
kind of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in a way you're like, oh, okay, people, because sometimes I think you and I, like a lot of what we do for us, it seems like common sense, right? It's like, well, of course you're gonna do that, or of course you're gonna test this, or of course you're gonna and when you start telling other people and you see them like furiously taking notes about what you're saying, you're like, oh,
This is
is this
not it's not your daily life. It's not
is
what.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
think that's kind
exactly.
of a nice way of knowing that you're kind of at the top of your game when you're teaching other people and
Yeah,
they're finding what
it's
you're saying
like
valuable.
yeah, and for me the keyword is like reflection, right? Like I know it becomes a little bit philosophical now, but I feel like when I do these events, I reflect on what I've done, right? And like
Mm,
makes me think about what I have done and what I'm doing. I think that's a pretty big part.
mm,
Also, I also do. I don't know if you do this, Jen, but I have a. It's not that active because of Corona right now, but we have actually I'm part of a networking group we set up where we focused. So I've evolved a bit. We've had it for 3 years now, or something. But for growth hackers, like
Mhm.
where it's just growth hackers, and we would invite every time we meet every 2 to 3 months or 5 people, so not super big, and then we invite a guest speaker, sometimes virtual, but a guest speaker who tells a story about a case or tells a story about a growth hack or a growth process, whatever it is, right? And then we learn from that person. Those sessions have been really valuable. And we pay we pay some money because then we have some nice food every time, so we don't like eating food packages or whatever it is, right? Like, but we actually have some nice food, and we pay a little bit for the participants sometimes, and then we get some really cool insights. So, but God, that's been so valuable too. Like
Mhm.
that's also something like because then we always have these like sessions where we share how it's going, what are you struggling with, kind of things, and we're like, so I'm struggling with this thing, and then you're like, have you tried this tool? Have you tried this, and then boom, then you go right. So those things I can definitely recommend setting up a network group, but make sure you I haven't tried anything else, but I would say make sure you get together with people who are at the same level as you.
Mm.
Not to talk down to anyone, but and people who are at least striving to be a lot better, right? So and we can be fine to be network groups with salespeople or whatever, but here I'm really trying. Like at that time when we set it up, okay, growth hackers, people who are in growth, that
Mm.
space, like talk about growth processes and all that stuff. Who are those people? How do we like let's find some more people like that.
Excellent point. Yeah, those networking groups are really, really great. I struggled in the beginning because a lot of the really good ones were in Danish. So I missed out on kind of a few of them, but yeah,
Yeah,
there are some really great networking groups. Again, Marketing Connect is a really good one as well. That's in English
yeah,
for anyone out there who is in Denmark and doesn't speak Danish. I kind
yeah.
of speak it, but not that great.
I think they're great at Danish. Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
Mang attack.
Yeah, coming
Nailed
along.
it.
Yeah, with your new kid, it's gonna be even better soon.
I know. Yeah, I gotta start practicing
Yeah,
even more.
yeah.
In terms of books, okay, so I have a book. This book I grabbed it while you were speaking, but Webs of Influence by Natalie Nahai. This one for me, okay, I have a love hate relationship with marketing books because by the time they come out, sometimes things have moved on and they're not really that relevant anymore.
Yep.
But I really like this book because it talks about web psychology of online persuasion. So
Mm.
that really helps in terms of messaging that can get people to react. It even talks about colors on websites that can convey certain feelings and kind of how you
Yeah.
can persuade people online, which are
What
things
was the
that I
name of the
think
book
doesn't.
again?
It's called Webs of Influence. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But
really really good. It's not the newest, and I'm sure it's changed, but Natalie is a web psychologist, so
okay.
it's all about like colors and motivating people to continue taking actions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting. But I do like to pull from a lot of different disciplines. I think that's my marketing approach is kind of pulling from CS or pulling from psychology or pulling from sales and everyone in between to try to be a bit more holistic about what we do to kind of because it is a very holistic kind of practice. I think marketing can pull from so many different
Yeah.
things,
And
right?
like when it comes to books, like I don't think, especially we talked about this before, but marketing moves so fast, so fast.
Hmm.
So like you would never read a book about how to set up Google Tag Manager, right? Like there's probably books about it, but it wouldn't be relevant because like the time the book came out, it would probably like I think it's changed a few things now as a good example, but so these things change all the time. So books have to be processed and like theoretically focused. Like they have to focus on they can get as close to the ground as possible. I think that's great, but they have to look wider. They have to look bigger. Like
Hmm.
they can't just go into details, and I respect them. Like the book shouldn't do that. Like one of the books that influenced me the most, I read the Seth Godin's Purple Cow book. That was I think that was wasn't a game changer for me, but it was a pretty good one. Like I liked that one a lot. It made like the core concept is just like if you drive by in a car and you notice a field with one purple cow, you remember that purple cow, right? So it's a simple principle, but sometimes it's just about standing up. Um, so I think that was really good. I've always liked there's a Danish speaker called Martin Lindstrom I've read all his books
Yeah,
about.
I was literally just about to say Martin Lindstrom. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Brand Small Data, Biology.
Exactly.
He's
Biology is
awesome.
probably one of my favorite books ever.
Biology is awesome. Brand
It's really
is
good,
also really
and
good.
it's yet like it's a little bit not far from our world, but it's a little far from our world. Like I can't do neuromarketing exercises on a daily basis,
No?
on a yearly basis, right? Like in our world, we don't get close to that, but we can still take some of the learnings and the mindset from it and say like, okay, what does this mean, right? Like when we talked about split testing, what does this color mean down the
Mhm.
line, and stuff like that, right? And I think that's really interesting. I think that some of the books that inspired, they're very inspirational books. Like those were some of the stuff that really inspired me. Also,
Yeah.
of course, I read the Sean Ellis. Like so, Sean Ellis, the founder of the growth hacking term, the coined the term. It's a growth
Mhm.
hacking book. It's just called growth hacking. Hacking growth. Sorry. That was also like when I just started my growth journey. Excellent, like
Mhm.
excellent book on that topic in general. Talks about the whole process and everything. I think that's really good. There's a bunch of copywriting books. I can't remember all of them now, but there are some really good ones out there too. And then I think like I remember there's all the old school guys like Phil Cutler and all those like old school marketing stuff. The thing is, that shit still matters. Like,
Mhm.
so if it's not part of your early education, then at least familiarize with some of the core concepts. The
Mhm.
four P's, right? Like the basic four P's. And some people talk about the five P's, right? But understanding that stuff, wow, that's really important. Like that's actually, and that's something you can use. It's not. Don't get me wrong. Like a SaaS today is different, but it helps your perspective.
Yeah, and I also think maybe just pointing out Neil Patel has he's super active on social media and his blog, and it's really interesting in terms of SEO. John Loomer, get his newsletter. He does a lot about Facebook in particular and paid
Yeah,
social. So
it's
he has
great.
some really good stuff. The
I think
HubSpot
we.
blog,
Yeah, exactly.
definitely follow that. And yeah,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of blogs. I think it's kind of hard because, after you work all day, right? I don't want to read about marketing all the time. Or, on your weekend, you're like, oh, let me read more about marketing. But I use sometimes to go back for reference.
Whenever I go on vacation, I try to always bring at least one book that's like something I feel like I can use in my work. But I also try to not bring more than one. Because like sometimes you just also have to disconnect. I like podcast has been. You always also brought it up. Podcast has been one of the biggest teaching things for me personally on a very personal level.
Mm.
Not just doing podcasts is great now, but listening to podcasts. I have to give credit to two Danish guys who make a Danish podcast called Marketing Brief. Has them Tim and Neil Christensen. It's in Danish, but they I think they've done 400 or 500 episodes, something like that. And I think I literally when they started, that's when I started my career 5 years ago or something.
Mm.
For real. That's when I really got started traction. And they were just like every day I'd be like taking mental notes on stuff to do, and they're like, okay, let's try that. And then I tried that stuff, and that podcast has been really good. But also, you bring up the virtual traffic. I think that's great, and I think we mentioned Chris Walker and Dave Gerhardt earlier,
Mhm.
but both of those guys are also very trendy right now. Let's put it that way. Both of them are part of Dave's marketing group thing on Facebook. But I think Chris Walker is extremely interesting because he's really tackling even more than I do the whole focus on the right metrics. He talks about
Yeah.
metrics all the time, about way pipeline. If you want to understand that stuff, you should definitely follow him. And
Mhm.
Dave is the complete other side of the spectrum. Don't get me wrong; he understands everything Chris talks about, but Dave talks about copy
Yeah.
all the time, brand and copy. Oh my god, and he talks about it all the time. And whenever he talks about it, I'm like, yeah, God, I should listen more to that dude. It's like, he makes so much sense, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's good to get a broad perspective. I want to bring up one more guy that I followed, and I think so. You have Dave on one side, and you have Chris that covers another area. You have John Boomer, you have Patel, all those guys. I want to bring up what I call a little bit of an older dog. So, do you know Mark Ritson?
No.
No, but so Mark Ritson is, I think he's an MBA professor from Australia, and he's the guy who's like, he's also a cut of bullshit guy, but he's more old school. So he typically helps really big brands, Burger King, those type of big brands, right? Stuff like that. and he talks a lot about strategy. So so whenever people go and say like TV's dead and stuff like that, he had a big like spoken event. I remember he did like, okay, but yeah, TV is declining, it's not dead. It's like still 70% of people watch TV. Like it's not
Yeah, yeah.
dead. Like you still get a lot of reach. And I think that's really important to have like influence from different aspects of marketing. I think
Hmm.
that's my point. And he is a total like he's the one. He's not advocating for TV, but he's just saying like, let's be real, guys. TV's not dead. Like you can do Twitter ads or you can do a big TV campaign. And sometimes the right option is to do the TV campaign.
Hmm.
So he's also been pulling me in another direction. I like that. Challenges at least. I see.
Yeah, it's very easy, I think, to fall into these trends and to hear one thing and go, that's, I'm going to follow that. And I think the thing to remember is that every business is different. And so it's important to pull from where you can. Like I love Martin Lindstrom. I think it's so interesting. But like you said, I'm not going to just use him as my kind of Bible and follow everything he does because I don't have his resources or
Exactly.
anything
And
like
where
that. So
yeah,
pulling from things and perpetual traffic, like I guess you with the marketing brief, I listened to them every morning on my way to work and was like, oh, that I got to remember that, and I got to remember that, and I got to remember that. Yeah, so I think, yeah, it's important to pull from different places, learn by teaching. I think also, like you said, surrounding yourself with peers and maybe above, and people that you want to follow in their footsteps would be really good. So finding a role model, finding that kind of career model that you want to follow is
yeah,
really helpful as well.
exactly. And also, like, I think one thing I've learned, so I'm part of a few marketing groups on Facebook, but some of them I try to be involved in ones that are very specialized. So I'm part of SEO, very specialized SEO groups, very specialized AdWord groups, copywriting, marketing groups, stuff that are at least initially try to be very specialized. The reason being is then you don't want to like I don't want to be in a generic marketing group. Like that's very rarely going to work out great. Sometimes it does, but very rarely, right? So you want to find specialists because then, the like let's say I'm in the AdWords specialist group. Sometimes there are questions in there around like, it's a good question. I actually don't know how to do that either. And then I'm like, okay, now I do that because all these specialists just told me how to do that, right? Or whatever it is. I'm not an expert on Google Ads or SEO or stuff. I know quite a lot about it, but I'm not the best. And the best people, I'll let them handle that, and then I just follow. I'm like, okay, and then I pick that up, and then whenever next time we talk about SEO, then I can at least say, hey, have we looked at doing? Can we do this? Like I've
Mhm.
read that I can maybe we can do this, and then we can explore it and we can take it from there.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, it's kind of as a director, it's my job to know a little bit of everything. Whereas before, when I was a paid, specialist, digital marketing specialist, my whole world was just PPC. But now I need to know a little bit of SEO and I need to know a little bit of branding and a little bit of PR. And so you kind of have to be what is the saying? It's a master of none, but a apprentice of many. Like, I know a
Yeah,
little. I know a little bit of a lot of things as opposed to a lot of things about a little bit, and that just comes with the job and trial and error. And when I
exactly.
interview SEO agencies, the first few interviews I'm kind of like but then by the end I'm like, okay, I know what I need to ask you because these are what the other guys talked about. And
Yeah, that's a
you
good
just
point.
kind of
No, that's a
learn.
good point.
You learn
Yeah,
as you go as well with stuff that's just not really in your wheelhouse, but you have to know enough about it.
and of course you have to adjust. If you're just starting out with marketing, then some of the podcasts we recommend might be a little bit too advanced, and some of them might be good if you just start out.
Yeah.
So it's also like, where are you on your journey? Like if you're marketing doing marketing for a big brand with I don't know, Coca-Cola size, then you should probably listen to what Mark Ritson talks about. If you're doing branding for or doing marketing for a 10-man startup, you should probably more listen to what we do, right? Or us, right? That's an example. No, no humble brags, but uh,
Plug,
but
plug, plug.
but a small plug here in the end. But I think it's like there's a lot of resources out there, and finding the good ones is always going to be hard. And staying on your toes, it's actually easier than it ever has been. I think that's important to say. Like I think a lot of people paint it as like, oh, it's so hard to keep up to date because there's so much, and that's true. But there's also cool that there's so much.
Yeah.
Like back when my parents were grew up, there were just books. There were books and TV ads. That was it. Like
Exactly.
okay, you could go to an event. So I'm sorry, there were three things, right? That was it. Now there's podcasts, there's Clubhouse. Even let's talk about that in a different episode. But
It's a whole
there's
different episode.
Twitter is also great. LinkedIn is amazing for all this stuff.
Yep.
There's
Webinars.
events, there's webinars. Yeah, webinars. YouTube. God, I learned, like, I've never told this. I learned how to do Google Tag Manager on a YouTube course, and I'm really good at Google Tag Manager. I'm not at the best, but I can set it up and I can manage it and do all the cool things. And I learned that all from YouTube. So yeah,
Self-learning.
Self-learning. And on that note, I think that rounds out this topic. Do you have anything to add before we finish?
It could be overwhelming, the amount of information, but like, yeah, just make sure you get it when you can, and also take breaks and recharge.
Yeah.
Mental health is
that's
also really important.
Yeah, don't drown yourself. There's always time for learning. Like we can never cover enough. I want to add one thing that I forgot to mention. When I had to learn marketing initially, and that was actually after a failed startup. Long story. But my point is, I actually took some Udemy classes. I paid for a few courses on, I think it was Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and fundamental marketing, digital marketing stuff. This is way back then. And that stuff I would recommend if you're just getting started with marketing. And also YouTube is great there, but stuff like that is really, really good, because sometimes people learn from books, and sometimes I learn more from like YouTube guides and videos, stuff like that. I like that way more. Interactive stuff. Whatever moves your boat, it's probably out there. That's kind of my point.
Excellent point.
Sweet.
Cool. We'll end it on that.
Yeah.
Keep learning, people.
Keep learning. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.